Hello everyone, and welcome back to What If Files. Today we are exploring a crazy scenario. What if the Saiyans landed in the world of Naruto? Before we begin, I just want to set two quick rules for this story. First, this is not a power scaling series, meaning that the goal here is to create something fun and have an interesting story. So, to abide by that, some characters might punch above their weight, while others may perform worse than expected if it helps the narrative work. Second, for the sake of the crossover, Ki and Chakra will be treated as equivalent systems, meaning their inner mechanics will be aligned. With that out of the way, let's begin the story. The battlefield of the Fourth Great Ninja War was a shattered hellscape. Across the cracked plains, thousands of shinobi clashed desperately against the White Zetsu, while Madara Uchiha, the Jinchuriki of the Ten Tails, stood at the center of the battlefield. His skin now pale, cracked with inhuman markings, both eyes glowing with the purple glow of the Rinnegan. 10 truth-seeking orbs floated behind him like spheres of destruction. Madara Uchiha had become the Ten Tails Jinchuriki, and with that, he was stronger than any shinobi who had ever lived. He was so close to his goal now, the Infinite Tsukuyomi. Massive explosions of chakra reached the horizon, tailed beast-level attacks tore through the battlefield, and entire battalions of shinobi were just fighting to survive. This was supposed to be the end of it all, but then, in the middle of the chaos, the strongest amongst them suddenly felt something new. Far from the center of the battlefield, Naruto Uzumaki suddenly paused mid-movement. A strange pressure crept into his senses. It felt primal, terrifying, and the kind of energy that only yearned to conquer. It wasn't Biju Chakra, or even Sage of Six Paths. It was something else entirely. Inside him, Kurama spoke with an unusual tone. "Kids, something just entered this world." Naruto looked toward the sky. Nearby, Sasuke Uchiha had already noticed as well. Two objects fell through the atmosphere at terrifying speeds like meteors, but the energy inside them told the pair it was alive. Could it be one of Madara's tricks? Only time will tell. Moments later, the battlefield shook. Two enormous impacts struck the earth like falling stars, sending shockwaves rolling across the war-torn plains. Dust clouds rose hundreds of meters into the air. For a brief moment, even the fighting slowed. Then, a figure stepped out of one crater. A towering bald warrior wearing strange armor. Nappa stretched his shoulders and looked around the battlefield with a grin. He saw thousands of war-seasoned soldiers, the best this world had to offer, and yet he did not cower. "Weak creatures," he scoffed. From the second crater, another figure emerged. This was shorter and walked with crossed arms, his cold eyes scanning everything. Vegeta adjusted the scouter over his eye as it began processing the countless key signatures across the battlefield. The device beeped rapidly. There were several readings in the double digits, a few on a triple, and a single one that stood above all of them. His gaze drifted towards Madara, whose power approached that of Raditz. "So this is the source of that signal," Vegeta said. But Nappa had already lost interest in the analysis. He just grinned wildly. Well, looks like we landed right in the middle of the party." Without another word, he raised his hand. The explosion was instant, caused by the surge of ki and pressure, caving the whole region around their pods with catastrophic force, making Madara's meteor seem like a joke. The explosion erased entire kilometers of terrain. Shinobi, summons, and debris vanished into blinding light. Thousands died instantly. The shockwave flattened entire divisions of the Shinobi Alliance, and for a moment, the battlefield was silent. Then, the screaming began. Soldiers laid on the ground, weeping and shouting in agony. Others scrambled to group as panic spread through the ranks. That wasn't a jutsu. It wasn't an attack from a tailed beast. No one had ever seen power like that before. Vegeta, however, just scoffed. "Beat it, Nappa. What did I tell you about not destroying the planets too much? We still have to sell it." The big brute just scratched the back of his neck. "I'm sorry, Vegeta. I'll be more careful." At the center of the battlefield, Madara slowly turned his head towards the newcomers. For the first time since the war began, something had appeared that he could not even begin to understand. Before the Saiyans could do anything else, Madara landed in front of them. That chakra, what is it? You're no Jinchuriki, and I don't recognize that Kekkei Genkai, he said, studying them with his Rinnegan. Nappa blinked, looking at Vegeta, who just nodded. All yours, Nappa. The bald Saiyan smirked. You talk too much, Worm. He vanished. His fist slammed into Madara with devastating force. The impact shattered the ground beneath them. Madara's body folded under the blow as several bones snapped instantly. Nappa smirked, proud of himself, but seconds later, the damage began repairing itself. Fragments of bone reformed, muscle stitched itself back together, and Madara stood upright again. Well, now, that's interesting, Nappa said. The two clashed again. Nappa's strikes hit like artillery shells, each punch cracking Madara's body and sending him crashing through the battlefield. But Madara just kept regenerating. Meanwhile, the Uchiha's own attacks barely seemed to slow down the Saiyan. Fire jutsu could barely warm his skin. The lightning didn't even crack his armor. And even attempts of using Shibaku Tensei were meaningless. The Saiyan just laughed, walking out of the sphere, having felt higher gravity back in Planet Vegeta. It quickly became clear, Nappa possessed overwhelming raw power, but Madara still had something dangerous of his own. Madara launched a truth-seeking orb towards the Saiyan, perhaps the only thing now that could kill him. Nappa didn't even react, planning on tanking it. But suddenly, Vegeta's voice cut through the battlefield. Nappa, dodge! Nappa twisted his body at the last moment, avoiding a hit to his torso, but it still grazed his arm. Instantly, flesh began disintegrating. Nappa stared at the destruction, crawling across his ring. For a moment, the battlefield froze, but then, Nappa roared. Without hesitation, he grabbed his own arm and tore it off. Blood sprayed across the ground. You miserable worm! You think tricks like that scare me? He screamed out, of pure fury, shaking the battlefield. Before Madara could even respond, Nappa opened his mouth. A massive energy blast erupted outwards, engulfing Madara completely, detonating across the battlefield. When the explosion faded, Madara's body was gone. Vegeta clicked his tongue in annoyance. You idiot! He glanced at Nappa's bleeding shoulder. Stop blinking around and seal that wound. Nappa grunted and began closing the injury with raw energy. Meanwhile, the remaining shinobi forces began regrouping. Thousands of soldiers were now approaching the Saiyans. Seeing the army gathering, Nappa grinned again. Oh, good, he said, reaching into a pouch and pulling out several small seeds. One by one, he planted them into the ground. The soil trembled, and a moment later, 6 creatures burst out of the earth, shrieking violently. These were the Saibamen, a plant-like alien species that was easy to grow, yet had tremendous power. Nappa cracked his neck as the creatures eagerly awaited an order. Go on, he said, pointing out to the approaching Shinobi Alliance. Let's see how tough this planet really is. And with that, the Saibamen charged towards the battlefield. Now, the Saiyans seemed ever closer to conquering this world. But, beneath all the trouble and destruction, Madara's regeneration had begun rebuilding him. However, just for now, he was still removed from the battlefield. The 6 Saibamen hit the battlefield like a plague. At first, the Shinobi Alliance thought they were dealing with some new kind of summon, a small and vicious kind. Ugly little creatures with clawed hands and terrifying grins. But that assumption died almost instantly. Entire squads of Shunin rushed in to intercept a single one of them. They released fire, water and earth jutsus, hoping to at least slow it down. But the green alien just launched. Its claws ripped straight through the first shinobi's chest. Then it latched onto a second soldier and spat a stream of acids into his face, melting through his mask, skin, and half the armor beneath it in seconds. The man's scream barely lasted long enough to register before he collapsed. In the next 10 seconds, the same situation would repeat around the battlefield dozens of times. Hundreds more were dying before even understanding what had hit them. The Alliance line broke once again. "Retreat," one of the commanders shouted, but there was nowhere to retreat to. This shinobi had been terrifyingly outmatched ever since the Saiyans arrived, and now their hopes were running low. The Saibamen moved too fast. They tired us through the ranks with terrifying speed, tearing apart low and mid-tier shinobi before they even could form hand signs. Needles of acid, claws, and simply ramming through formations made them formidable opponents. Entire squads were wiped out in moments. Blood sprayed across broken earth, smoke rose everywhere, thousands died in minutes, and the worst part was that the creatures kept coming. They were worse than beasts, worse than summons, and perhaps even worse than the Bijou. Naruto clenched his teeth as he watched the slaughter unfold. Kuroma's chakra flared around him in a blazing golden glow. "Let's go all in," he muttered, eyes narrowing. Beside him, Sasuke's Sharingan dragged one of the Saibamen darting across the battlefield. "This is getting ugly," Naruto said, to which Sasuke only replied, "That's putting it lightly." Suddenly, a Saibaman lunged at them. Naruto was the first to move. A rising shuriken formed in his hand and blasted forward with a roar of wind and chakra. The Saibaman crossed its arms and blocked it. The impact sent it skidding backwards, its body shredded and smoking from the force of the attack. But he did not fall. Naruto's eyes widened. It blocked that? That same attack would be able to give even Madara Uchiha severe damage, so the fact it did little more than some skin trauma to the monster was enough to tell just how strong it was. The Saibaman hissed, grinning through the damage. Then it opened its mouth and spat acid. Naruto twisted away just in time as the corrosive fluid burned the ground where he had been standing. Sasuke appeared beside it in a flash. Black flames ignited through the air. Amaterasu. And, at the same time, lightning crackled around his hand, the Chidori. The two attacks fused together, striking, piercing straight through the Saibaman's head. For a split second, the creature froze. Then, its body began to bulge, and Sasuke's eyes widened instantly, understanding what this meant. "Move!" he shouted to everyone around him. He vanished in a heartbeat before the Saibaman detonated. The explosion tore across the ground and sent fire and debris flying into every direction. Sasuke skidded back, smoke rising from the edge of his skull where the blast had singed him. Naruto went beside him. "Are you okay?" Sasuke glanced at the burns along his shoulder and arm. "I'm fine," he said. Neither of them looked relaxed, because the battlefield was only getting worse. Near the center of the chaos, Kakashi and Obito were forced into motion. One of the Saibamen had broken through the line and was heading straight for a group of wounded shinobi. Kakashi's eye swirled. "Obito, I know," he replied. The two of them moved at the same time. Kamui warped open in front of the creature, trying to drag it into the pocket dimension, while Obito rushed in to ensure it could not escape. For a brief moment, the Saibaman struggled against a pull, claws digging into the earth. Then he turned and slammed a fist into the ground. The entire area exploded outwards. Kakashi was forced back, and the Saibaman twisted free just enough to launch himself at him. Obito saw it instantly. Then, without hesitation, he moved in front of the attack. The Saibaman struck him with enough force to rupture the ground beneath his feet. Obito gritted his teeth as the creature latched on, trying to spit acid at the people behind him. Kakashi's voice snapped through the smoke. Obito! Obito looked over his shoulder. He smiled, having made his choice long ago. He put the Saibaman closer, using Kamui to bring him out of this dimension. In a split second, the creature's body warped violently as the space around it folded. The blast erupting half inside Kamui dimension, half outside. Obito was engulfed in the explosion, taking the brunt of the detonation. A shockwave ripped across the battlefield, and when the smoke cleared, Obito was gone. Kakashi just stood there, frozen for a second. Then he lowers his head, nods. There was no time to mourn. Not here and not now. There were still several of these things on the battlefield, and he needed to act. When he lifted his head, he was ready. Fine. Elsewhere on the battlefield, the remaining Saibamen had become bolder. After understanding the gap between them and the average shinobi, they did not care. They displayed. They skipped through broken corpses and shattered armor like they were playing a game, clawing everything and anything in their path. Nappa watched them from a distance and burst into laughter himself. "Look at them go," he said, wiping one eye. "Those little bugs are actually fighting back." He stepped forward casually and stomped one of the Alliance's frontline defenders into the dirt without even looking down. Another shinobi lunged at him with the blades, but Nappa simply caught it with one hand and snapped it in half. Pathetic, he shoved the man aside and kept walking. Each step cracked the earth, each swing of his arms sent soldiers flying. He wasn't even trying anymore. After Madara Uchiha, any of these little creatures weren't even a warm-up to him. He needed more. Then Naruto and Sasuke stopped. Both of them felt it at the same time. A pressure, a monstrous spike of chakra rising from the center of the battlefield. It was the same as before, the one who had blasted Madara away. Naruto's face hardened. That's him, the freak who blew everything. Sasuke trembled slightly, sharpening his gaze, trying to keep contact with the monster. Just, who the hell are you? The air around them seemed to tremble as the bald Saiyan slowly turned his head in their direction. His grin widened. At that moment, Naruto and Sasuke both understood something with absolute clarity. If the shinobi world wanted to survive, then they needed to defeat these beasts. It was the only way. The Saiyans were clearly stronger than Madara, much so. However, the legendary shinobi had managed to cut one of their arms off already. That should give them the edge, or so they thought. The battle went silent for one brief moment. Then Nappa laughed. Finally, some actual entertainment as Naruto and Sasuke walked towards him. Vegeta scoffed from behind. "Try not to dirty my armor, Nappa. I don't want to have to punish you again." And just like that, the last hope of the Shinobi Alliance prepared to face the Saiyans. Naruto and Sasuke did not waste another second. Nappa simply cracked his fingers and rolled his shoulders as the two charged forward. "Come on then," he grinned. "Show me what you Earthlings can really do." Naruto struck first. Dozens of shadow cones erupted across the battlefield, surrounding Nappa from every direction. Rasengan, one after another, spheres of spiraling chakras slammed into the Saiyan's body. The earth cracked beneath each impact, explosions of wind carving trenches throughout the landscape, as clone after clone attacked without pause. Dust swallowed the battlefield, and only after dozens of attacks did Naruto come to a halt. "Did we get him?" one of the clones asked. The smoke slowly parted, and Nappa stood exactly where he had been. His armor now bore a few black scorch marks, nothing more. "That's it?" he asked, frowning. Before Naruto could react, the Saiyan disappeared. A crushing backhand launched Naruto across the battlefield like a missile. He tore through several cliffs before barely catching himself against the side of a mountain. Sasuke was next. Lightning exploded around his blades as he flashed forward, each slash aimed with deadly precision at the neck, ribs, and finally the heart. Nappa, however, winked away from every single strike. Then he caught Sasuke's wrist, and finally he squeezed. The sound of cracking bones echoed across the battlefield as Sasuke's wrist was broken in several places. Sasuke grimaced, forcing a burst of Chidori through his hand, stunning Nappa just long enough to wrench himself free, flipping backwards. The warrior simply laughed. "You two really think this is a fight?" He cracked his neck. "You haven't even made me sweat." A massive explosion of chakra roared from a distance. Naruto transformed. Kurama's chakra surged around him in a colossal golden avatar, towering over the battlefield like a living god of war. At nearly the same moment, Sasuke's perfect Susanoo rose around him. Its armored form crackled with darkness and lightning. This time, they attacked together. Sasuke's Susanoo drew its massive blade, while Naruto's Kurama avatar compressed an enormous tailed beast bomb. Now, Naruto screamed. The sword cleaved downwards, and the bomb followed a heartbeat layer. The two attacks collided with Nappa simultaneously, who didn't even try to dodge it. The explosion swallowed the horizon. Mountains disappeared beneath a storm of fire and chakra. For several long seconds, there was nothing. Then, as the smoke began to subside, a figure emerged. Nappa. His armor had been torn open. Blood trickled from a deep cut across his shoulder, before slowly running down his chest. The grin he once had by now vanished. He touched the blood with 2 fingers, looked at it, studied for a moment, and then he settled his gaze back up. So, his voice was almost calm. "You're not completely useless," he said. For the first time since the battle began, Nappa looked genuinely serious. But, before the battle could continue, the ground beneath them began to tremble. A hand burst from the rubble, then another. Stone exploded outward as Madara Uchiha rose from destruction. His body torn apart, broken, and yet still alive. Skin knit back together at impossible speed, bones reformed. His body rebuilt itself through terrifying regeneration, until he once again stood at the center of the battlefield. His face was twisted with fury. These newcomers, these aliens, they had interrupted his victory. They had dared to stand in the way of his dream. Then, a third eye opened across his forehead, the Rinne Sharingan. Its crimson pattern pulsed like a living curse as Madara's chakra erupted to a whole new level. The air itself bent around him, the dream of this world. Madara's voice echoed across the battlefield. "Is mine." Madara vanished. The invisible Wimbo clones struck first. Heavy blows crashed into Nappa from every direction. Each impact forced him back another step, before he could even identify where the attacks were coming from. Truth-seeking orbs curved around his blind spots. A massive Shinra Tensei exploded outward, hurling thousands of tons of rubble into the Saiyan all at once. This time, Nappa didn't just go serious. He was genuinely forced onto the defensive. His boots carved deep trenches through the earth as invisible attacks continued, hammering his body. His eyes narrowed. Interesting. Madara appeared overhead, striking Nappa down. However, he caught it. The ground beneath them shattered, and the Saiyan smiled again. Now this is more like it. Then Vegeta stepped forward. He had watched this for long enough. Enough, he said with a calm voice. That somehow made everything much worse. Madara immediately turned. Every instinct screamed at him, danger. Vegeta only raised one hand. A concentrated blast of ki erupted forward. It smashed through Madara's defenses without slowing down for even an instant, and Madara himself was hurled across the battlefield like a broken doll before crashing into the ruins hard enough to split his body apart. Vegeta lowered his arm, persistent with all creatures. He scoffed. Madara began to rise once more, furious. He shot the truth-seeking orbs at the Saiyan Prince. Vegeta, however, weaved effortlessly between them. Each movement so casual, it looked less like dodging and more like mockery. Another flick of his hands, another blast, and just like that, Madara disappeared once again. Naruto and Sasuke grouped together, preparing for a final clash. The towering Susanoo wrapped itself around Kurama's avatar, creating the colossal armored figure that could rival even the gods. The battlefield trembled beneath its weight. Vegeta looked up and smoked. Without changing his stance, he lazily flicked 2 fingers. A single beam of ki pierced straight to the avatar. At first, silence. Then, cracks spread across the enormous construct. Like shattered glass, the entire avatar exploded apart. Naruto and Sasuke were hurled in opposite directions, crashing into the ruined battlefield as fragments of chakra dissolved to the wind. Neither had enough strength to stand now. They were powerful, much more powerful than any other shinobi in the Shinobi Alliance. However, against the Saiyans, this strength meant nothing. Madara stood once more amidst the destruction, bloodied, broken, and yet not ready to bow yet. He slowly looked toward the sky, then he cast it, the Infinite Tsukuyomi. The moon above began glowing crimson. At first, it was subtle, then the entire world darkened, as a blood-red light flooded the battlefield, washing over the shattered earth, the broken armies, and every surviving shinobi. Everyone looked up. It was too late to do anything. The light reached their eyes, and one by one, the shinobi collapsed. Their expressions became peaceful. Their bodies stood motionless, as dreams took hold. Rinnegan-like patterns spread across their eyes as the genjutsu imprisoned them within the world of peace, desire, and regret. Beneath them, the roots of the God Tree burst from the earth, twisting to the battlefield and binding those who could no longer resist. Sasuke used his Susanoo just in time, blocking the light like in the original story, protecting him and Naruto. However, everyone else was gone by now. And then, the crimson light reached Vegeta. He scoffed. What is that? Another cheap trick? Nothing happened. He began to laugh, but then his vision blurred. The battlefield vanished. He blinked. Frieza was kneeling before him. Entire galaxies stretched beneath a throne worthy of the Prince of all Saiyans. Every warrior in existence bowed before him. Every single one. Even the Saiyan he would yet know on Earth lowered his head. His empire, his birthright. Everything was finally restored. Vegeta's breathing slowed. Impossible. He clenched his fists. The vision refused to disappear. His gaze drifted toward Nappa, already standing motionless beneath the crimson moon, already lost inside his own perfect dream. You idiot! The words escaped as little more than a whisper. He fought the illusion one final time. Then, his eyes lost focus, his body went still, and Madara now could smile. The Infinite Tsukuyomi had conquered the world, and even the Prince of all Saiyans had surrendered to a dream built from his own deepest desire. Vegeta stood beneath a vast golden sky. He was no longer kneeling in the shadow of anyone. No more humiliation, no more rejection, no more being forced to live beneath the legacy of others. Here, the Saiyan race was his to command. His father stood before him, proud at last, not broken, not mocked, not shamed by tyrants, just respected. Vegeta had surpassed them all. Frieza lay defeated at his feet. The Super Saiyan form had been his long ago, not stolen or delayed, but earned through blood and fury. The universe bowed before him. Planets burned beneath his orders. Entire armies trembled at the name of Vegeta. And then one final image rose before him. Beerus, the god who had once humiliated his father. The god who had made the proud Saiyan royal line bow its head. Vegeta faced him as well, not as a prince, desperate to prove himself, but as a conqueror. Using the power of legend, he struck Beerus down, and the whole universe watched. Now, he stood over the fallen god in silence, breathing hard, his pride burning brighter than the stars. This was what he always wanted. This was what he had always been denied. Then the world shifted. The sky cracked, and somewhere in the distance, a roar echoed through the heavens. Vegeta turned. A battle was happening, not here, but someone else. An enemy unlike the others, Majin Buu, the strange pink monster surged through a war-torn world. The kind of absurd, impossible opponent that could only come from eons past. The fight was chaos, destruction and fury all at once. Vegeta launched, trading blows with the creature. His fists crashed into Buu's body. Buu's attacks slammed back even harder. Then, during the fight, Vegeta looked up at the full moon. He stopped for a moment, his eyes fixated on it. The moon's reflection stirred something inside him, the power of the Ozaru. Unbeknownst to him, back on the battlefield of the real world, Vegeta's body trembled. His aura exploded outward with terrifying force. The ground shattered beneath him, his frame began to swell, bones cracked and shifted, muscles expanded beyond any reasonable scale. His tail lashed behind him as the transformation completed. Vegeta became a great ape. His colossal statue towered over the battlefield, a monster of pure Saiyan might, his roar shaking the air itself. The surge of power ripped through the illusion around him like a blaze through silk. The Genjutsu snapped. Vegeta's eyes followed the crimson light back to its source. The moon, the thing that had dared to control the world. The thing that dared to control him. He frowned, furious. "You think I'd let something like that chain me?" he snarled. Then he opened his mouth and unleashed a devastating beam of ki straight into the sky. A roar of energy burst upward, brighter than anything else on the battlefield. The moon was struck dead center, and then it shattered. The red light vanished instantly. The Infinite Tsukuyomi collapsed. Across the world, the Genjutsu broke in a heartbeat. The roots of the God tree pulled back and withered. The shinobi trapped in the illusion gasped awake, their bodies twitched as confusion and terror replaced the dream haze. All around the battlefield, soldiers opened their eyes in shock. The sky returned to normal, and the nightmare was over, for now at least. Madara's expression changed. Without the moon's reflection, and with the God's tree destabilized, his control faltered. His chakra flared wildly, but it was no longer the same. He had lost his perfect world, and that made him furious. He turned toward Vegeta. The great ape stood like a living disaster, breathing heavily, steam rising off his body. Madara launched forwards, the truth-seeking orbs ready to strike him at once. However, it was too slow. The great ape's fist came crashing down like a meteor, slashing Madara into the earth with enough force to split the battlefield wide open. For a brief moment, there was silence. Then, the rubble began to move. Madara's body tried to heal itself. However, Vegeta wouldn't allow it again. "Still alive," he said with a broken voice. He opened his mouth, just slightly. A sphere of ki gathered in it, before erupting outwards. The explosion swallowed the entire battlefield, vaporizing everything inside it, and when the light finally faded, there was nothing left, not even ash. Elsewhere, Nappa had taken advantage of the chaos. Any remaining white Zetsu, any stragglers, any shinobi still trying to fight back, he finished them without hesitation. One by one, the battlefield was cleaned out by brute force. Naruto and Sasuke stood among the wreckage, both battered, barely standing, both staring at the two Saiyans, like men trying to understand the force of nature. Naruto's breathing was racked. He stared at the smoky crater where Madara had once stood. "We couldn't even slow them down." Sasuke remained silent for a moment. Then he looked towards the departing Saiyans. Not today. Their gazes met, and without uttering a single word, they both understood. There was no victory to be found here, only survival. Without another word, the two disappeared into the trees. Somewhere there had to be a way to defeat monsters like this, but today was not that day. Vegeta had by now reverted back to his normal form. His breathing was rough, not from the physical exertion, but from having years of his dream life erased in an instant. He looked across the ruined world one last time. Then, through clenched teeth, he spoke. "Let's leave, Nappa. This planet..." He stopped there. He didn't need to say anything else. Nappa, having seen his own version of a perfect world, said nothing. For once, he didn't joke. He just turned and obeyed. The Saiyans returned to their pods. One after the other, the machine sealed shut and launched upwards towards the shattered sky. The battlefield below was left in silence. Then, once they were in space, Vegeta stopped. He opened his pods. The cold vacuum surrounded him, and below hung the lonely planet. He stared at it for a long moment. Then, with his hand, a ki blast gathered in his palm. A single move that could end it all, and yet, he stopped. He sighed. "Not worth the effort," he said before leaving. Soon, the Saiyan pods became nothing more than distant stars, before finally vanishing into the endless darkness. The world had survived, barely. If you enjoyed this story, please leave a like and subscribe, it really helps the channel grow. And if you want to watch any more cool, interesting what ifs I've prepared, there should be 2 videos appearing on your screen right now.